Tonight's story is about a woman who was buried 60 years ago. Except she wasn't. It's about a grave that was filled, not with a body, but with stones. A mystery that no one in town ever noticed. A secret that lived beneath the soil, waiting to be found. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to The Silent Case and hit that like button, because tonight we're uncovering what really happened in the case of the empty grave. It started when the earth was disturbed. A gravedigger working under the thin light of dawn struck the edge of a coffin that wasn't there. The nameplate on the stone read, Eleanor Reddin, beloved wife, 1931 to 1962. But beneath the soil, where her body should have been for 60 years, there was nothing. Just air. A hollow space, sealed perfectly until that morning, untouched, unseen, and empty. And from that moment, a quiet town began to unravel. Because no one in Harrowfield knew that Eleanor Reddin had never been buried at all. Eleanor Reddin's story was supposed to be simple. A kind woman, a schoolteacher, a sudden illness, a quiet funeral, and a husband who never remarried. The records matched. The obituary was printed. Her grave stood in the same row as every other stone from that winter. But when that grave was reopened for a routine ground inspection, when the dirt gave way to a hollow chamber, it became clear that someone had staged an entire burial. There was a coffin, yes, but it was filled with stones carefully wrapped in linen to mimic the weight of a body. Her death certificate was signed by a local doctor, the same doctor who vanished a year later without explanation, and her husband, Arthur Reddin, a man whose name had disappeared from the town registry in 1963. No record of his death, no forwarding address, no trace. Only a house on the edge of town, boarded up, filled with dust and silence. Inside that house, police found a single room still intact. A bedroom, 2 glasses on the nightstand, and a woman's hairbrush with strands still clinging to the bristles, decades old yet untouched by time. The brush was clean, the sheets were fresh, and on the wall, written faintly in pencil, were 3 haunting words. Don't open the ground. That was where the trail began, and where the silence grew heavier. People in Harrowfield didn't talk about the Reddins much. Some said they'd kept to themselves. Others claimed Eleanor had left before she died, though no one could ever prove it. But when investigators reopened the old files, they found something strange. A pattern buried in paperwork. Every witness statement from her funeral was signed by the same 3 people. None of them could be found alive. The doctor who declared her death, Dr. Halverson, had been accused of falsifying medical records in another county. The case was dismissed. Then he vanished. The undertaker's log for Eleanor's burial had been torn from the book, the page just before and after it were intact. And the photographer who took the funeral pictures, a man named Reeve, had left a note in his journal the night before his own disappearance. She blinked. It was dated 1 day after Eleanor's supposed burial. At first, police thought it was a metaphor, a poetic flourish. But when they recovered his old film rolls from his attic, rolls that had never been developed, one frame stood out. It showed the coffin, half lowered into the ground, a group of mourners, and behind them, at the edge of the cemetery, a woman in a long coat, her face turned just enough for the light to catch it. The resemblance to Eleanor was unmistakable. Same eyes, same shape of face. Except the photo was time-stamped 2 days after her recorded death. When asked who she might be, locals shrugged. She moved away, one said. She never existed, said another. The town had learned not to ask questions, and the more the police dug, the more the ground itself seemed to resist. The Reddin home was the next to give up its secrets. Behind the wallpaper in the bedroom, investigators found a small panel in the wall. Inside it, a journal. Eleanor's handwriting, neat and deliberate. The first entries were ordinary, recipes, notes about students' weather. Then, in the final pages, her tone shifted. Arthur comes home late. He says he's been with Dr. Halverson. They talk about me as though I'm not here. Another line read, something in the medicine. I can taste metal. I keep waking up in places I don't remember going. And finally, they say it will look natural, that no one will check, but I will not go where they put me. The last entry was dated 2 days before her official date of death, and below it, a single word, written in larger letters, Southfield. Southfield was the name of a farmhouse, long abandoned several miles outside town. The police searched it 3 times. The first 2 times, nothing. The third, they found a trapdoor beneath the kitchen boards. Underneath, a space no bigger than a crawl hole, lined with blankets, a lantern and old tin cans. No human remains, but on one wall, carved deep into the wood, was the same message from the Redden house. Don't open the ground. The handwriting matched Eleanor's. For months the case grew cold again, until a young archivist named Lydia Harcourt began digitizing Harrowfield's old census records. She found something no one had noticed before. A second Eleanor Redden listed in the same year, same birth date, different address. The handwriting on the form didn't match Arthur's. It matched Eleanor's own, the same looping E's and narrow D's. Someone had filed a new identity under her name after her supposed death. The new address? Southfield Farm. When police cross-referenced property records, they found it had been purchased in 1963 by a woman using the alias Helen Ward. The photograph attached to her driver's license application, faded but visible, was Eleanor Redden, older, thinner but alive. It explained everything. Arthur hadn't buried his wife. He'd staged her death, maybe even with her consent. The falsified death certificate, the fake coffin, the secret messages. But why? A letter found inside a hollow leg of the bed frame gave the final piece. It was unsigned, but clearly from Eleanor. They won't stop looking for us. The doctor said the trials must stay secret. I can't live with what they've done, what they made me take. If they think I'm gone, maybe they'll stop. The doctor, the medicine, the taste of metal. Dr. Halverson had been conducting experimental treatments, unlicensed and later condemned, for a neurological condition involving induced amnesia. Eleanor was one of his subjects. She hadn't died. She had escaped. The death had been a cover, a way to erase her from official records. Arthur helped her vanish under a false name, far enough away to keep her safe from the others involved in the trials. But something went wrong. By the time she resurfaced as Helen Ward, the past had already swallowed everyone connected to the case. Dr. Halverson disappeared. Arthur faded from sight. Eleanor, or Helen, lived quietly for years under that false identity, until she too vanished sometime in the 1980s. When Southfield Farm was finally sold in 1991, it was empty. No forwarding address, no next of kin, just an old journal, and the words, "Don't open the ground." The earth keeps its secrets well. No one in Harrowfield talks about the empty grave anymore. The cemetery workers filled it again, sealed it, and replaced the headstone as it was. Eleanor Redden remains listed as deceased, cause, natural causes, winter of 1962. But every so often visitors leave fresh flowers at her grave. No one sees who leaves them. No one hears footsteps. Only the petals scattered by the wind and the faint scent of lavender, her favorite perfume, drifting through the cold morning air. Lydia Harcourt, the archivist, once said she heard something when she visited that grave for the last time. A soft sound, deep beneath the soil, like someone breathing. When she told the police, they laughed it off, said she was imagining things. But later, reviewing audio from her recorder, there was a faint whisper, barely audible, a woman's voice saying, "Don't open the ground." No one knows where Eleanor went. No one knows what she ran from, and maybe that's the point, because sometimes the most frightening mysteries aren't the ones buried deep, but the ones that never died at all. This was the case of the empty grave. If you liked this story, tell me your favorite part down in the comments. And remember, you're watching The Silent Case, where no one knew what really happened.